Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about what TRT is and what it isn't, and why fit pros and YouTubers lie about it and call it TRT. The problem we have is that lots of people then make the mistake that because these guys lie about being on TRT when they're doing other stuff, that they then assume that anyone who says they're on TRT, they go, well, why don't they look like a guy who has a $10,000 a year drug bill, right? Because that guy claims to be on TRT, like perfect example, Lobe Liner. I'm not going to get into how I necessarily know this, other than we used to be friends and used to talk. I mean, Lobe Liner allegedly, rumor has it, allegedly, that he uses up to 1.5 grams of nandrolone of one form or another on top of the TRT, and the TRT is actually double dose that he's getting prescribed, and so it's not TRT. So I mean, that's just one example of how people are not understanding. It's like, guys, when someone is on a couple of grams of stuff a week plus growth hormone, that's not even remotely close to TRT. They'll call it that, but that's basically exceeding what the 1980s IFBB pros even used oftentimes. Okay, you need to understand that. You're talking about amounts of stuff that professional enhanced bodybuilders only used half of at one time. So what is TRT? TRT is testosterone replacement therapy. So people asked me a while back in my comments, hey Jason, what's the difference between, when does it go from TRT to a cycle? Because realistically, if your doctor's prescribing it legally, it's not illegal, but it's not TRT. People use the TRT term for legal purposes. Okay, you need to understand that. If a person jumps up and flat out says they're on a bunch of illegal substances, on camera or on their social media, they've admitted to breaking the law. A public admission of breaking the law could be enough to get them into trouble. Could be enough for police to get warrants or to investigate, because they're straight up claiming it, and that would be used in court later. So that's stupid. If they say they're on TRT, what happens? Their admission is that they are following the law. They are saying on camera, I am not doing anything illegal. Or they're saying on their social media, I am not doing anything illegal. That doesn't mean what they're doing is actually TRT. Okay? If a doctor prescribes any amount of testosterone that takes you outside of the reference range, you are no longer on TRT. TRT is testosterone replacement therapy. It replaces a natural amount. It's synthetically replacing what you should have been producing in an ideal range. All right? So when someone talks about, they're getting 200 or 300 milligrams, it is very, per week, it is very, very unlikely that 200 milligrams is in the normal range. Now, some doctors will chime in and say, well, I do have a couple of patients. Let me put it there. I have a couple of patients who can take that much and stay in the normal range, the high end of the normal range. Those are the exceptions to the rule. Because remember, like with everything else, different people will see different blood serum levels of different things when they're prescribed by a doctor, right? One dose does not fit all of giving you an exact blood level. That's why when different things are taken that are prescribed to you, you have to get blood work done to know where you're at. The majority of guys at 200 are going to be outside the normal range of what even, like you guys think, that's a really high testosterone guy, right? That guy has a really high testosterone level naturally. Most guys at 200 milligrams are going to exceed what he has. We're not really at replacement doses anymore. If your testosterone levels exceed what the genetically gifted testosterone producer can make, that's not TRT. We're now in the supraphysiological range. It basically, the physiological normal range is 300 to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. Okay, a lot of guys at 200 are going to go over 1,000. At 300, which a lot of guys will claim they're doing TRT, you will be outside of the normal range. Right? Hopefully you understand that. Most guys, 100 to 150 milligrams prescribed by your doctor will put you in the normal range, whether you had low test or not, because it just suppresses your natural production. So if you're put on this, you'll just stop producing your own anyways, and you'll just be whatever your body gets from what the doctor's giving you. Now, guys will say, well, doesn't that give you an advantage? It gives you an advantage over having low testosterone. But being in the normal range doesn't give you a real advantage. And I think James Krager did a write-up on that not that long ago. I don't have the link handy because this video will be up way later and I'll forget that I even mentioned it by the time this video comes up. But you guys can find it out. He actually did a full review looking at all these studies trying to determine about how much muscle gain a person will have for different levels in the natural range. And you want to know about what he concluded? That there is no synergy with training, that if you have a higher testosterone level, you're just going to have more muscle that you're just going to build on your own, whether you train or not. Okay, the training elicits its own separate response. You don't get a synergistic. It doesn't mean like if you gained 1 plus from the 1 pound of muscle from training versus 1 pound of muscle from testosterone, that if you do both, you're going to gain 3. No, it's just going to be 2. Okay? That is what he concluded. It's additive, not synergistic. And what he found based upon the research, that on average, for every 100 nanograms per deciliter, higher you are inside the normal range. So in other words, a guy who has 600 nanograms per deciliter versus 500. 500 is actually about average for a really healthy 20-year-old. Okay, about 500 is a very healthy 20-year-old is average. That's normal. So if you have 600, you're going to have for every 100 about approximately rough average 2 pounds of muscle extra. 2 pounds, not 10, not 20. So if a guy is being prescribed enough to be at, say, 700 nanograms per deciliter, over the course of time, over the course of a couple of years, he's going to have a bout that he'll just gain no matter what, whether he trains or not. It's not going to be relevant to his training. It's just going to be what his body holds. Around 4 pounds of extra muscle mass for that. Okay, so being healthy average versus the higher end of healthy average when you're not freak levels. You got to remember 900 and 1,000 are freak levels. Those are less than 1% of the population. They're genetic outliers, but they're all in the reference range for a reason. Okay, they're going to have about 4 pounds of muscle. So even if you go really high, I mean maybe about 6 pounds of muscle at 800. That is about what you can expect. Well, 6 pounds of muscle is not extreme, right? Because we generally gain in our first year of lifting probably 15. So you would look at a person who has levels like that and assume they could gain about 5 to 6 pounds of muscle over what they would have just from training alone over the course of 3, 4, 5 years. And I'm not saying 6 pounds isn't relevant, but it's not going to make you look like a pro bodybuilder. You're not going to look ultra jacked because you have an extra 5 or 6 pounds of muscle. It'll make a difference, but it's not night and day. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So then you see these guys who are holding 20, 30 plus pounds of muscle over what their frame would allow them to hold, and they'll say, oh, well, TRT, do you understand? They're saying that to cover themselves legally. They're not actually on prescription TRT, and that's the problem, is that guys will then see these fitness people who will make these claims, and they're like, oh, so if I just go get on TRT from my doctor, then I can do the same thing if I just train really good and hard. And what ends up happening, you're very disappointed because, yeah, TRT is helpful. If you need it, you need to be on it. Like if you medically qualify for it, your health and well-being would benefit from it. But you're not going to gain 10 pounds of muscle from it. You're going to gain a pound or two of muscle probably. You're not going to gain 20 pounds of muscle. Okay? There's a difference. It's still keeping you inside the normal range. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.